Simon leads the team developing the business and infrastructure for Sydney New Airport. Simon is motivated by Western Sydney Airport's unique opportunity to drive meaningful socio-economic change across Western Sydney while setting a new benchmark for passengers, airline and air cargo operators. Friends, please welcome Simon Hickey to the microphone.
Thanks everyone. Can I start by thanking Tilly for her welcome to country, which I think was a fantastic welcome to country, so thank you very much, Tilly. And thanks, Molly, for your warm welcome tonight. So, looking around this room, this is why we're building Western Sydney International Airport. This is our community, and we believe that Western Sydney International Airport will make a difference to each and every one of us. It's absolutely fantastic to be here and share with you where we're at and why we'll make such a difference. Good evening, everyone. And Wally, I must come back and just say thanks for everything that you do for the business community, not just in Canterbury, Bankstown. It's a privilege to be here tonight talking about Sydney's new airport and what it means for Western Sydney. Western Sydney International Nancy Bird Walton Airport is 3.5 years away from connecting the world to a via its cultural heartland here in Sydney's west. We know that today built around airports, and this is the decade for Western Sydney. Fantastic opportunity for all of us. We're at the start of an incredible transformation of this vibrant and exciting region. The top 10 fastest growing local government areas are in Western Sydney, many of which tonight. We're expecting unprecedented growth in the region by almost one began in 2017 operations, which provide deep strategic advantages for LAX and LHR. IATA codes are normally assigned in the 12 months before leading up. Early designation reflects IATA's confidence in the progress and delivery of the airport. WSI will be able to cater for up to 10 million passengers from opening in late 2026. So that's about a 25% increase in airport capacity for passengers, again from day one. By the 26th and their children, the airport will redefine and reshape our region, pulling the centre of economic gravity towards the west, bringing with it not just more jobs, but higher quality, higher paying jobs. People will no longer have to travel to the east to be a software tomorrow's jobs today. I'm really excited about our new partnership with Western Sydney University. Students majoring in IT are now looking at emerging technologies and smart ways to use data to revolutionise for first-time flyers. The students are combining the skills acquired through their studies with real-world data on the project, with an emphasis on ethical data use, data privacy and cyber security. They have chosen to focus on using data such as airline schedules, live traffic data, public transport, security, screening requirements to help passengers prepare for their journey. A technology partner, DXC Technology, are helping students in the. For example, students for 1 year while studying CSIRO offers internships on the project teams. Now I often get the airport will bring. Let me close with a personal story. And we invited students to our Experience Centre at the airport site. After her inspirational firm intention, Aska was able to see the opportunity liaison officer. This airport is now, and Aska is with us tonight. Like Aska, opportunities are at our doorstep now. Let's set our intention and our grandchildren's future. Tonight I encourage you, our airport community, stay up to date on the progress as the airport takes shape and we gear up for operations. Let's continue the discussion shortly. And thank you for attending tonight. We really value your support. To close, I'd like to share a short video that captures the excitement. It's testament to the powerful presence Western Sydney. Thank you for coming on the journey with us. And we look forward to welcoming.
Means everything, you know. I want to stay working out here. It's important. I grew up there. I went to school at Freeman Catholic College in Bonnery Heights. Lived in Western Sydney my whole life. I remember driving around here when I was younger, going to the Birders Club. The place was just bush. It's pretty crazy to see what it's changed into. We're building a big terminal and a big runway for the future, so it's pretty good. Growing up here, actually getting a bit of love now.
So my background is originally from London, and we migrated here many years ago now. Because of the type of project, I've actually worked on a lot of different fronts, and what's fabulous is that we're starting to see the public see what we've always known about this project, which is that it's going to be great for Western Sydney. Bring so many jobs and so much benefit to this area.
Well, it's a good one. And it'll be something we've got to down here, and of course going to uni in Western Sydney. Always been connected to the area, inner city, the CBD, so I think it's a good chance to bring some of the life. So yeah, I can take my family quite close or yeah, very, it's going well as you can see in the background.
It's been moved. It's moved over now. Used to drive through the airport. I can actually walk from my house to Orchard Hill with Metro.
I've stayed in Mount Druitt for most of the last about, especially our area Mount Druitt here. Surrounding. We're out here got more heart, especially. And in the city, I know that.
To our panel members, and if I may introduce David was a federal agent in the Australian Federal Police fighting organised crime as a captain in the Australian Army Reserve. David's private sector experience. Joshua Bird, Western Sydney Community Forum programs at Western Sydney Community Forum, leading various programs at Western Sydney Community Forum, leading various projects. Western Sydney. Dola Mirelli, and public speaker. She brings wealth of national and international culture space as well as tertiary sector. And Dr. Rhonda Itawi, lead Western Sydney University. Dr. Rhonda is the lead researcher at the Centre for Western Sydney Human Geography, focused on developing inclusive urban spaces. Rhonda is passionate about using research to advocate for communities through consultation.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us in this room filled with incredible faces, incredible networks, and members of the local community that are all as thrilled to discuss the opportunities to come with the Western Sydney International Airport. As you can see, we have a very dynamic panel, but also a panel who brings a range of expertise and perspectives on the opportunities to come. So I want to start off with Simon. As the CEO of Western Sydney International Airport, you bring over 30 years of experience in aviation, construction and retail to your role. With your leadership, and as we've heard tonight and seen, the airport is set to become a major driver of economic growth and development in Western Sydney. Can you share with us what we can expect in both the scale and the nature of the opportunities associated with the airport and tonight?
So thanks very much for that. When I think about Western working today, who has, so the opportunity is absolutely before us. Focus on the jobs that are going to come at the airport. So IRO, we're working in schools programs to make sure that schools understand great jobs, from data analytics, from airport traffic control, to working with an airline, to working on a myriad of opportunities that are coming, and they're not that far up, 1,000 SOPs, and then we've got to start that we get people, that we train them up and they know what the opportunities are. About grabbing hold with that intention about how we have an airport that keeps on growing. We're going to have cargo operations that from Western Sydney up to Southeast Asia overnight. And so those opportunities are bound around us. I think that the road at Kemps Creek and Amazon, I went up to have a talk to them, from their top floor they say, we looked at really want you to keep going. So in Western, not capture them, but bring them into Western Sydney and show them we're not just moving through the airport and out of the region. If you think about the Blue Mountains, one of our local LGAs, and so what about if they spent their first night up in the Blue Mountains? What about if they experienced, how do we actually create the atmosphere so that people, actually they're coming to see all of the various cultures that exist. Well, I'm coming because I'm visiting family here, and I've actually got to have some way to our region. And then I think there's a really thin Darling Harbour. Well, that's full. That's used every day. You're coming and staying here. We should be building a big convention centre. We should be putting a hotels here, centre which is business travel. We need to think big in terms of what Bradfield can skills into the local regions. We need to think big in terms of what even medical tourism and how that actually, what we can do with our clinical expertise. So I would encourage what is coming, which is enormous, and that would be my...
And reflect on in terms of the opportunities and how to leverage. And as the director of Western Sydney Creative, you're in the best position to speak about some of the opportunities that we have to expand the experiences that Simon spoke about. So Dolly, you were one of the authors of a regional report on the arts in Western Sydney. Significant funding inequities and challenges for the arts sector. And one of the key proposed priorities in the report was developments such as the Western Sydney Airport. Could you please elaborate on this recommendation of creative industries in the success of the upcoming airport?
Yes, our State of the Arts in Western Sydney report highlighted critical inequities in facing Western Sydney's arts sector. For example, the New South Wales Government's Arts and Cultural Programme allocation per capita is $102 for Eastern Sydney compared to $12 in West Industries to the economic and social development of Western Sydney and New South Wales. And to give you some background, Australia's cultural and creative economy contributed $111.7 billion in 2019. about 6.4% share of the GDP. And the largest contributors were design, fashion and broadcasting, electronic and digital media, games and films. And in addition, there's about 6% of Australia's total in the cultural and creative industries. But despite this, and despite the fact that the creative industries are not well understood in New South Wales, and the absence of a public... The study that Rhonda mentioned, our feasibility study, is what we want to do is identify or respond to the gaps by providing a strategic roadmap for maximising the potential of the creative industries, as well as identifying key areas of opportunity, such as the explosive growth of streaming and immersive content. And in particular, we're hoping that the outcomes of the report will study and will address key areas such as job creation, tourism, the nighttime economy, content creation and digital infrastructure, transport, livability, regional and city planning. Ultimately, what we want to understand is how the creative industries can tap into the potential of not only to support the region, but also the opportunities afforded by the airport. We know that the creative industries, the arts and cultural sector, are strategically significant engines of economic growth, job creation and social cohesion. They fuel tourism, they promote culture, and I think we have to be careful that our focus on and enthusiasm for STEM doesn't override the potential of the creative industries or the creative skills that are going to be required for the jobs of the future. You know, ideally, our vision is that Western Sydney is seen as an innovative, globally connected, creative powerhouse. And as Simon said, the arts, he didn't say the arts, but the arts and cultural heartland of Sydney.
I should have said the arts.
You should.
Fantastic. Dol, I do have a follow-up question on that note. How can the airport and associated developments surrounding the airport support the growth and development of the arts sector in Western Sydney? And what steps can be taken to ensure that creative industries benefit from these economic opportunities that will be presented by the airport?
Well, I guess imagine for a moment Western Sydney is the heartland of sustainable Indigenous fashion with access to a global market, or a leader in digital content creation, which is part of a $1 billion market that showcases Western Sydney's unique identity and culture. I mean, put simply, the reality is that in order to achieve that, what we need is more coherent public policy settings and investment from all three levels of government to ensure that Western Sydney's arts and cultural sector has reasonable access to and can take advantage of a whole wide range of different types of cultural infrastructure. And there are encouraging signs, with the Arts Minister John Graham indicating that the new strategic arts policy will include the creative industries for the first time in New South Wales. But also, and this is a provocation really for the airport itself and for the Western Parkland City Authority, beyond the jobs and the infrastructure and the industry approach, the questions we need to be asking ourselves is, what are we doing to support Australia's artists and cultural producers? How can we strengthen the creative ecosystem and build digital capacity? How can we foster partnerships between the commercial sector and the arts? And how can we increase participation and access to the arts by our community? And there are many different ways of doing this. And beyond the kind of tokenistic public art approach, one way is to embed creative hubs that can serve as a conduit between the creative, cultural and tech sectors and between stakeholders, policymakers and government, or by providing the facilities that are needed by creative enterprises on flexible, affordable terms, or dedicated incubators for software, fashion, digital arts, or travel technologies, for example. Airports worldwide support the arts and recognise their important role in promoting their region as destinations of economic attractiveness and tourism. I mean, Vancouver International Airport, for example, has one of the world's biggest collections of Northwest Coast Indigenous art. Hong Kong International Airport has a 4-month festival of the arts, and Changi Airport is regarded as a tourist destination in of itself. The arts and creative industries have a critical role to play in positioning the airport as an ambassador for our region.
Thank you so much, Dora. So much to think about, and again, reflect on in terms of the opportunities moving forward. I'm going to refer to you now, David. As the state member for Fairfield and a highly committed local advocate, you are well aware of the socioeconomic challenges faced by the local community. Troublingly, recently I was looking through some of the trends in Fairfield, and according to the most recent index of relative socioeconomic disadvantage, also known as the CFA index, Fairfield ranks highest in the state in terms of disadvantage on an LGA level, and has the lowest rates of education attainment and highest rates of unemployment in our city of Sydney. So in your opinion, what role could Western Sydney Airport play in improving these trends, and what steps would it take to achieve this?
Okay, thank you, Wanda. So when you look at the CFA index, the CFA index leverages off the Australian Bureau of Statistics census data. And so Parliament has done a bit of research on this to do a deep dive into some of the indicators there. And so out of the 93 electorates of New South Wales, Fairfield ranks number 1 or number 2 of the following indicators: youth unemployment, low individual income, rental stress, mortgage stress, the list goes on. And so when you look at this, government sets the conditions for communities to thrive. And if we are serious about governing for all and truly pursuing the public interest, then we must turn our attention to electorates like Fairfield and surrounding regions. That is absolutely critical. And that means that reform is needed and needed now. So that requires government to engage with business, to find out what we need to do in order for businesses to thrive, but we also need to target some of these indicators that I've mentioned and come up with specific policies to address those points. So for example, unemployment. We need to look at ways to boost up our labour force's employability skills within Fairfield. We need to improve their digital literacy. We need to go about making them competitive in the Australian labour market. So in terms of the airport, we expect that the airport will obviously improve aggregate demand, so consumption, investments, both private and public, and also government spending. And so with that, we'll see increases in the population out here, as previously mentioned. We'd also we'll see increases in government's investments on key infrastructure projects in order to promote private capital formation. And from that, consumers will also flourish as well. But it's very important, this airport is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to benefit Western Sydney. Government needs to be very deliberate in its approach. And when I talk about government, I talk about local government, state government and federal government working hand-to-hand with the community to be deliberate in achieving those outcomes. Very, very, very important.
Thank you, David. I definitely agree with that place-based approach being critical in improving some of those trends that we're seeing. So I do have a follow-up question. How can the airport create opportunities for local residents and businesses? And what are the measures that you think should be put in place to ensure that these benefits are distributed fairly and equitably?
Sweet. I'll just return to an initial point you just got my memory just said about talking about changing the psyche of Western Sydney being a tourism attraction hub as opposed to just Sydney at large. And so I was over at a function a couple of days ago and I was speaking to a Chinese function, I was speaking to a local Chinese tourist operator, and he was saying that they're targeting people from overseas to come to places like Cabramatta to showcase some of the cultural heritage that we have in Western Sydney. So I think that was a very important point to mention, that we need to start looking at areas such as Fairfield, Liverpool, Cabramatta, Parramatta as some of the nation's most multicultural and multi-faith communities that offer a wide range of services that people would actually be keen on jumping on. But in terms of the question at large you mentioned, so we see the airport generating obviously employment opportunities. That's critical. We've got a labour force out here, a labour force that's not particularly enjoying the greatest rates of employment. So that's capable of transitioning that in terms of building capacity and positive spillovers across the board. And so I mention that because we're focusing on investing in other areas that have low unemployment, whereas if we focus on underdeveloped areas like Fairfield and reducing its unemployment rate at a higher percentage, the economy at large benefits the states of New South Wales. Infrastructure investment, tourism, property demand, so that's important. Commercial and residential investment is spooky given positive economic spillovers from the airports. And finally, there's something called an economic multiplier effect. So if Liverpool benefits, Fairfield will benefit by and large as well because people work around different areas. We've already seen that video before talking about people from Freeman Catholic College or from Fairfield or from Mount Druitt. These are people in Western Sydney gaining employments across the area. So if one benefits, we all benefit. Now, in terms of distribution of wealth, very important. So when you look at an economy, you're going to see multi-speed areas. And that's based on different compositions of industry within those local areas. So Fairfield, for example, has a higher rate of manufacturing workers compared to other areas which have, say, professional occupations. So you'd expect there to be variances in terms of growth. It's important that we ensure that those variances are limited so that the investment spreads across sort of evenly so no one's left behind. So that's a role for politicians and the community to get together and be very, very, very deliberate and very strategic in how we deal with these things and not shooting from the hip and saying, hey, we're going to do this thing and not thinking the second and third and fourth order considerations.
Thank you. Joshua, as the Manager of Policy and Programs at the Western Sydney Community Forum, you're really at the forefront of capturing and addressing the challenges faced by communities in Western Sydney. Given the significant impact that the Western Sydney Airport will have on the area, what do you believe should be the key issues of focus to maximise the community benefits of this development and ensure that vulnerable communities are not further disadvantaged in the process?
Thanks. So that's a really interesting question, and as all of you can probably appreciate, Western Sydney is, by pretty much any metric, the most diverse part of Australia, economically, culturally, and in a whole host of other ways. And as a result, there's a diversity of views and diversity of expectations in relation to how the community can take advantage of the opportunities presented by the airport. For example, the Western Sydney Community Forum, we represent almost 200 community organisations across Greater Western Sydney, and there will be those who really see the airport as an opportunity, a genuine life-changing opportunity, and others who really have little engagement with the airport. They don't see it as something that's relevant to their lives. Now, the areas of focus, I think you could say there are a number which have been discussed already tonight. So you have opportunities, obviously, for employment, for improved transport links, for hopefully improved service provision, opportunities for people who are in the supply side of the economy. But the challenges, as voiced to us by community, are really not so much around what the opportunities are, but the question of equity and whether there will be an equal opportunity to take advantage of those opportunities, and whether the right plans and preparations and processes are being put in place to allow that equitable accessing of those opportunities. So, for example, if you are working somewhere or living somewhere which is relatively close to the airport, maybe you can feel more confident that you'll be able to access these employment opportunities. If though you work or live in an area somewhere further afield, what we're hearing is people don't quite have the confidence that there's going to be a way for them, both physically in terms of transport links, but also in terms of whether they'll have an opportunity to upskill themselves in the right way to take advantage of some of these opportunities. So I think you've got real, genuine opportunities there, but there's also risks that unless there's a dedicated, specific effort made to ensure that these opportunities are equitably accessed, that some people will be left behind, particularly those who are sort of further geographically from the airport, or people who are not engaged in this sort of life-changing opportunity that the airport presents.
I think, Joshua, that does lead me well to my next question. How can the government and the private sector work with organisations like those that are members of the Western Sydney Community Forum to ensure that these benefits are equitably distributed? And what steps can be taken to mitigate any potential negative consequences?
Yeah. I mean, ultimately, the people who will decide whether the Western Sydney International Airport has been a kind of a successful endeavour will be the people of Western Sydney. And it's important to build into the sort of the evaluation, the planning for the airport, the people of Western Sydney. And so that requires the airport to do what it's to some degree already doing quite successfully. We've seen some of the great outreach work that's being done. But it's important to sort of meet community where they are and speak to them in terms they understand. So when I say where they are, I of course mean geographically. Like, even though this is an airport in a particular location, it will be, Western Sydney is a large area, and we want everyone to be able to be engaged with this exciting endeavour. And to be honest, most people in Western Sydney, when they wake up and eat their cornflakes in the morning, are not thinking about the international airport. There are pressing, cost of living concerns and other concerns, and so we really do have to make it a proactive effort to engage. Now, in terms of meeting people where they are, that also, is going to be much more successful if it goes through existing mechanisms for community engagement. So rather than trying to create new airport-specific, engagement processes, I really think that what the airport should do is sort of partner with existing channels for community engagement, and not just talk specifically about the airport, but partner where there's an interlink between the airport and the opportunities the airport presents and other issues which are of concern to the community. So whether it be cost of living, housing, and I think that's where you're really going to get that impact, and you're really going to get the buy-in from the communities, which will kind of generate the involvement which will need to sort of ultimately hold the airport itself accountable for the promises that it makes to the community of Western Sydney.
Thank you so much, Josh. I got the wave that we were running out of time, and I would love to sit up here and talk for hours about all the opportunities to come and troubleshoot and brainstorm through the solutions. But our panel has come to a close. I'd like to firstly thank our panellists for sharing their expertise and their really rich perspectives that have given most of us a lot to think about, but also to reflect on in the ways in which we approach these opportunities and the ways in which we collaborate together to ensure that these opportunities are maximised and that they're equitably distributed to benefit all in our region. So thank you all for your time and for your perspectives, and thank you all for your time as well and being here tonight.
Just a quick presentation. Can I call on James and Gilbert, please, to come up here? James and Gilbert. And can I invite Kylie, Jason, and Tina? Where's Tina? Tina? Okay. I'm just going to make a quick presentation to our sponsors for their
Are we going to break them in half? Just get this one on the way back. More black. I'm going to say
Just a quick acclamation for their support and their... Please, thank you.
I saved these for you.
we were going to eat them all, but
You fraud everybody else.
We're going to do the lucky draw prizes now, so if you haven't got your business card, please do so in the next